Hello and welcome to the Let's Measure It blueprint for Unreal Engine 4. These blueprints are best used during the blockout phase of your level. They are not styled to be visible in your end product. There are four main blueprints: the rectangle, the ellipse, the ruler, and the route. Let's take a look at them. Let's take a look at the rectangle and ellipse blueprints first. They are located in the map blueprints and you can simply drag and drop the components into your level. It will show you the area, the dimension, and the circumference. For the ellipse, it is somewhere around this number. You can easily use the translation tool to make it bigger. Same goes for the rectangle. The text above, you can move it also by using the text transform. You can move it up and down, but currently you cannot move it sideways. This is because the option Keep Text Centered is on. If you turn that off, you will see it will follow the widget. Turning it on again and it will stay in the center. You can change the text color. Let's make it a bit more red. And you can also, because if you do this, you will see the text is not really readable. So you have the option Face Camera and the text will always follow the camera. And the same goes for the ellipse version. Oops, let's turn it on. These areas do not have a default material. You can set any material to it. I made a few colors. Let's make this one blue. Let's make this one nice and green. And these are in the pack also, by the way. These are in colors. You made one master material. You can make other colors, but you can also use your own materials for it. The next blueprint is the ruler. You can simply drop it in your level and use the target point to set its length. As with the rectangle and ellipse, you can manipulate the label text, and it's not moving sideways because we have the Keep Text Centered option on. And when we turn it off, it will follow it. Let's turn this back on again. You also have the option to show the intervals. You click this on, and it will put in some labels. You can set the interval to a different number. Let's say we want it every 2 meters, and then it will only put a label in for every 2 meters. Of course, you also have the face camera, so all the labels will always face the camera. And let's put this back to 1. You can also measure the distance between two other actors. So for instance, if I have a cube here, I have a cube there, select my ruler, my actor source, actor target, voila, it will show you the distance between those two actors. With a route blueprint, you can define a path which is based on a spline. You can use this to define routes a player can take in your level, and it will measure the length and time it will take the player to follow this path. It's very useful, for instance, when designing a first-person multiplayer map. You have two teams and you want to know at what point in the map the players will meet. And instead of playtesting your level design with a stopwatch, you can let this blueprint do the measurements. Let's take a look. We drop this blueprint in our level, and we're going to define a route a player can take. First, we're going to set the spline point type to linear, and then we will draw our route. I'll drag this a bit out. We create a point type by holding Alt. We move it further. Say we go here, we go there. Move it a bit. There we go. And here we have the end of the path. Let's say at each end there is a spawn point for a team. So let's add a plane here, put a little bit up. Make it a bit bigger. So this is a spawn point. This is also a spawn point. We will just copy this one. spawn A, spawn B, and we now know that the total distance, let's take a look, is 102 meters, and it will take about 17 seconds for a player to walk this path. The time this will take is based on the character speed, and the character speed is defined here. Its default is set to 600. If your character has a different maximum speed, you can change it. Let's say the maximum speed is 400, and you will see it will take about 25 seconds. But this is the total path length. So when the game begins and both teams start to travel the path, Team B from this side, Team A from this side, where will they meet up? Normally, you will make some measurements, or you'll take a stopwatch and you will measure it during your playtesting, and you will figure out that it's somewhere around here. With this blueprint, you can add marker points. We have them here. One is at 0%, one is at 100%. This is where the texts are, and we can add another one at 50%, and we will see that it is exactly here. 50%, and for each team it will take almost 13 seconds to reach this point. Now we know that this apparently is going to be a choke point. So let's make this a bit bigger. Voila. Let's put it a little bit down to 5, to 10. Okay. So now we can design our level even further by putting in all kinds of geometry here, make it a nice little battle area. But the important thing is we know now with this path, this is the point where both teams will meet. And you can use multiple paths in your level, and for each path you can use a route blueprint to measure the exact timings where they will meet each other. Very useful. As with the other components, the settings are somewhat the same. You can move the labels, which is for all the labels in the level of on the route. And as usual, this will do nothing until we tick off our keep centered option, and now it will follow it everywhere. And of course, there is the face camera option, so all the labels will always face the camera. You can change, of course, the text color. Let's make it big different. And you can use different meshes for your markers and your points. So for instance, if I want a sphere, I'll go down here, basic shapes and sphere. And for the points, let's also do the sphere, which is in the basic shapes. And now we have spheres. These are a little bit big normally, so in the default setting I've tuned down it a bit, but you can set it to 1, it will be very big. You can set this one to 2, but it's a little bit too big, so let's make it a little bit smaller. And of course you can add a material. Let's make these red, and let's make these green, and there you go. Another option is to use one route all the way up to here and make a second one all the way there. So in that case, we can delete this one, and move this one over here. And then you could create another route to the spawn area, but then you have to visually check if the length and the timings are correct. So that is up to you. When you have many Let's Measure It blueprints in your level, it could be quite annoying to change the properties of each blueprint. For instance, you can change the color here, but that will only be for this specific instance. For that purpose, I created a little helper blueprint, which is called the LMI control. And with this LMI control, you can set the settings for multiple LMI blueprints. What you have to do is select an LMI blueprint and set its control variable, in this case to LMI control. Let's do this one too. And now with LMI control, we can set properties for all the blueprints who are pointing there. So if I take the text, it will all happen at the same time. Of course, you keep text centered, facing camera, they all work. For the rectangles and the ellipses attached to this blueprint, you can set the material. So for the rectangles, I want red, and for the ellipses, I want blue. Very simple. Let's do one for the rulers too. Let's set the control to LMI control 2. And this one too. LMI control 2. Now we can set the ruler color. Nice little blue to show or not show the interval. And set the interval. And the same goes for routes. We can use number 2, for instance. Let's set this one to number 2. Also, and you will see now it has no material. We can fix that here for the routes. We set this to yellow. And let's set this one to blue. So when working with many of the LMI blueprints, this might be a useful tool to control the settings without having to set them all one by one.